You ever get that idea in your head that you're gonna help your spouse, and you think, this is going to be great? Realize you've just signed your own comedy ticket? That was me last Thursday. My wife was reorganizing the kitchen. She said, "Can you help me with this?" I said, "Absolutely, I got this," thinking I was about to be heroic. 10 minutes in, I realized I had no idea what I was doing. I grabbed a cabinet, tried to lift it. Immediately, it hit me. It's heavier than I expected. And now I'm just awkwardly holding it while she calmly says, "Maybe don't do that." And next, she handed me a stack of dishes to wash. I thought, how hard can dishes be? 2 minutes later, the sink is overflowing, the soap is everywhere, and somehow the water is spraying like a broken fire hydrant. I'm slipping around, trying to grab plates before they smash, and she's just standing there watching, shaking her head, saying, "I said I needed help, not a swimming pool." I thought, well, at least I'm trying. But trying doesn't stop a plate from shattering on the floor. Came the small appliances. She asked me to move the toaster and clean behind it. I unplugged it, pulled it out, immediately noticed the cord got tangled with the blender. I yanked it, and suddenly the blender fell off the counter, missing my foot. At this point, I'm reconsidering the entire idea of helping. You ever notice that simple tasks look easy until you attempt them, and then realize you're just creating a series of disasters in real time? By the time I tried to help fold laundry, I had already broken a glass, soaked half the kitchen floor, earned a very suspicious look from the dog. I was holding a shirt upside down, trying to find the sleeves. She came over and said, "Do you even know how to fold a T-shirt?" I said, "Well, technically, I could. I think I'm innovating." She wasn't impressed. At the end of the day, I sat down, exhausted, covered in soap and flour from the kitchen. I'm not sure how that happened. Realized helping doesn't always mean fixing things. It usually means making things slightly more chaotic, but with good intentions. She thanked me anyway, which felt like a victory. And that's adult life in a nutshell. You try, you fail spectacularly, and sometimes that's exactly what makes it funny. You ever think you're about to do something heroic, reality hits you like a brick? That's exactly what happened when my wife asked me to help her reorganize the kitchen. I said, "Absolutely, I got this," full of confidence, thinking I was about to be the supportive husband of the year. 10 seconds in, I realized I had no idea what I was doing. I grabbed a cabinet, and it was heavier than I expected. Not just heavy, like I might pull a muscle or accidentally demolish the kitchen. Heavy. I stood there awkwardly holding it while she calmly said, "Maybe don't do that." You ever try to look heroic while simultaneously panicking? It's not easy. She handed me a stack of dishes to wash. I thought, this is simple, I've washed dishes before. 2 minutes later, the sink was overflowing, the soap was everywhere, and I was slipping around like I was in some kind of water-themed circus act. Every attempt to grab a dish before it fell turned into a tiny disaster. I started talking to the plates, saying things like, "Don't do this to me, please," like I could reason with them. She stood there, arms crossed, watching the chaos unfold, saying, "Said help, not start a flood." At one point, I tried to help with the utensils. They were flying out of my hands like they had a mind of their own. I'm holding a spatula, a whisk, and a fork in a desperate attempt to balance everything. I realized my entire idea of helping had turned into a full slapstick routine. It's funny how something so small, just offering help, can spiral into absolute chaos in seconds. By then, I understood the first rule of adulting. Sometimes intentions are noble, but execution is where comedy happens. Ever think doing something simple like washing dishes will be easy and then discover it's basically a full contact sport? That's exactly what happened when I tried to help my wife with the kitchen. She handed me a stack of dishes and said, "Wash these." I thought, sure, I've washed dishes before, I got this. 2 minutes in, I realized I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. I turned on the faucet, added some soap, and suddenly the water started spilling everywhere. I tried to be careful, but somehow the sink became a miniature flood zone. Soap bubbles were everywhere, on the counter, on the floor, even somehow on my shirt. I was slipping around, trying to grab plates before they fell, and it looked like a scene from a comedy sketch. Then came the plates themselves. They weren't cooperating. Every time I tried to stack them neatly, one would wobble and crash to the floor. I'd catch it at the last second, only to knock over a glass with the other hand. Ever feel like objects are conspiring against you? That was me. I started muttering to the dishes, saying things like, "Please don't break, I'm trying here," as if talking to them would help. Meanwhile, my wife was standing nearby, arms crossed, shaking her head and saying, "I asked for help, not a natural disaster." The utensils were a challenge too. Forks and spoons kept sliding out of my hands like they were auditioning for some kind of Olympic sport. Grabbed a whisk and somehow managed to fling water across the counter. My pants were soaked, my shoes were wet. I was balancing a plate in one hand while desperately trying to keep the soap bottle upright with the other. Realized very quickly that helping was not about efficiency, it was about survival. At one point, I tried to multitask by drying a dish while rinsing another, and that's when the chaos escalated further. Water was everywhere, bubbles were popping, and my dog decided to investigate the scene, slipping on the floor and adding his own comedic chaos. I was exhausted, drenched, and realizing that trying to help sometimes makes things worse, but also infinitely funnier. You can plan to be helpful. Life has a funny way of turning your good intentions into slapstick comedy that's impossible to predict. Ever think moving a small appliance is harmless and then realize it's basically a live action obstacle course? That's exactly what happened when my wife asked me to help clean behind the toaster and other small appliances. I figured this will be easy, 5 minutes done. But of course, nothing about adulting is ever that simple. I unplugged the toaster, thinking I was being careful, and immediately noticed the cord had somehow wrapped itself around the blender. I tugged gently, but of course, the blender decided it wanted to escape. It slipped off the counter, narrowly missing my foot. I jumped back like I had just been attacked by a tiny kitchen robot. Then came the toaster itself. I tried to move it without unplugging it fully because I'm resourceful like that, and instantly sparks flew. Okay, maybe not sparks, but definitely enough to make me question my life choices. I held it awkwardly, staring at it as if it were going to suddenly turn on me. My wife calmly said, "I think you need to step away," which in my mind translated to, "You're about to break something else expensive." I nodded, agreeing silently, though secretly thinking I was still in control. Next, I tried to organize the counter while keeping everything in place. You ever notice that small appliances have a way of moving themselves when you're not looking? I picked up a blender to move it a few inches, and somehow it slipped out of my hands, slid across the counter, banged against the coffee maker. I tried to catch it midair, but instead, I just flailed like a cartoon character, arms wide, almost knocking over a vase that had nothing to do with the chaos. It was like the kitchen had its own comedic timing, perfectly calibrated to make me look foolish. I realized at that point that helping isn't always about fixing things. It's about creating a little chaos with a confident smile. The toaster, the blender, and even the microwave seemed to be conspiring against me, each one testing how much I could handle before losing composure. My dog wandered in, watched me flail around, gave me a look that said, "Really? This is how you help?" That stare was probably the most honest appraisal of my abilities all day. By the time I finally moved everything to its proper place, I was drenched in sweat, slightly bruised, questioning why I had ever offered help in the first place. That's when it hit me. Sometimes helping just means being part of the chaos and surviving it with your dignity barely intact. Adulting, apparently, is nothing if not a series of unexpected slapstick moments waiting to happen. You ever think folding laundry is going to be simple, realize it's basically a test of spatial reasoning you never signed up for? That's exactly what happened when I tried to help my wife with the laundry. She handed me a pile of clothes and said, "Can you fold these?" I thought, sure, I've folded clothes before. I got this. I picked up the first T-shirt and immediately realized I had no idea where the sleeves went. I held it upside down, trying to figure out which way was up, and somehow made a crease that looked more like modern art than a wearable shirt. My wife glanced over and said, "Do you even know what you're doing?" I said, "Well, technically, yes." Then came the socks. Socks are supposed to be easy, right? Pair them up, fold them neatly, done. Except somehow, every single sock decided to escape. One slipped from my fingers, rolled across the floor, and disappeared under the couch. They're smart. I spent 5 minutes fishing around like a detective trying to solve the mystery of the missing sock. At one point, I was holding 3 socks in one hand and trying to match a 4th, and it felt like an Olympic sport. You ever realize that something as simple as laundry can make you question your entire life? That was me. Next, attempted to fold some pants. You think you just lay them flat and fold them in half, but somehow managed to make one pant leg twice as long as the other. I tried to fix it, but each attempt only made it worse. At one point, I just held up a perfectly chaotic pair of pants and said, "Art." My wife was not impressed. She sighed, shook her head, and walked away, probably questioning how I survived this long in life without assistance. I also tried to multitask, folding while putting away some shirts, but that's when the real chaos hit. Shirts fell off my hands, a towel slipped from my grip and hit me in the face. I realized that laundry isn't just a chore, it's a comedy routine designed to make you look foolish. My dog wandered by and stared at me like I was a complete mess, which, in retrospect, was the most honest feedback I received all day. By the time I finished a small fraction of the pile, I was exhausted, slightly sweaty, and questioning my ability to handle simple household tasks. I realized very quickly that folding laundry as help isn't about perfection, it's about showing up, trying, somehow surviving while everything slips, slides, and laughs at you along the way. You ever notice that pets have a way of silently judging you when things go wrong? That's exactly what happened when I was trying to help my wife around the house. After the chaos with dishes, appliances, laundry, my dog wandered into the kitchen to check on the situation. He sat there, head tilted, watching me like I was a reality TV show contestant who had completely lost control. You ever get that look from a dog that says, "This is your idea of helping"? That stare hit me harder than anything my wife had said all day. I was trying to balance a plate in one hand, hold a sponge in the other, and dodge flying utensils like I was in a circus act. My dog followed my every move, stepping cautiously around the puddles of water, seemingly calculating if it was safe to intervene. At one point, a plate slipped from my hands, and I managed to catch it just in time. He jumped back as if I just performed some dangerous stunt. I swear he gave me a look that said, "You're lucky I'm not telling your mother about this." Then came the laundry. I was folding a shirt upside down, struggling to find the sleeves, when he walked by, sniffed the pile, and shook his head slowly, like even he couldn't comprehend my methods. Every time I dropped a sock or sent a towel flying, he would step aside, clearly amused but also incredulous. I started narrating my actions out loud, talking to him like he was my personal audience. "See, buddy, I'm helping, I promise." He didn't respond, which I interpreted as classic canon sarcasm. Later, when I tried to tidy up the small appliances, he followed me around again, watching my every move. I accidentally knocked a measuring cup off the counter, and he jumped back, eyes wide, pacing as if to say, "They're smart. I knew this would happen." It's funny how pets can perfectly mirror the chaos of the household and amplify your embarrassment without saying a word. My dog became the silent commentator of my entire day, giving me feedback that no one else dared to provide. By the time I finished most of the tasks, realized that having a dog during chaotic, helping sessions is like having a personal audience that's brutally honest. Every spill, drop, and misstep is observed with judgment, and somehow that makes it funnier and more humbling. The dog's presence reminded me that while I may have failed spectacularly at helping, at least someone appreciated the comedy of it all, even if it was just silently. You ever reach the end of a long day of trying to help and just realize that adulting is a lot more about surviving chaos than actually fixing things? That's exactly what hit me after spending hours trying to help my wife. From dishes to appliances to laundry, managed to turn a simple day of assistance into a full-blown comedy of errors. I was exhausted, my clothes were soaked, my hands smelled like soap and cleaning spray, and my dog was still giving me that judging stare that made me question every life choice I'd ever made. It's funny how good intentions can spiral into total chaos, and somehow that's exactly what makes it relatable and funny. I started thinking about how this is kind of what life is all about. You try your best, you offer to help, and most of the time, the result is nowhere near what you imagined. But there's humor in that, especially when you can look back and laugh at the absurdity of it all. I had spilled water, broken utensils, dropped laundry, probably created tiny disasters in every corner of the house. Yet through all of it, I survived, and in some strange way, I felt accomplished. It's like adult life gives you a series of small tests designed to humble you, make you laugh, remind you that perfection is mostly a myth. Even my interactions with my wife were part of the comedy. She had that mix of patience and disbelief, quietly letting me flail around while occasionally stepping in to save the day. You ever notice that your spouse becomes the calm narrator of your personal chaos, silently commenting on how far you can stray from competence? It's a strange kind of partnership where your failures are observed, tolerated, and occasionally laughed at. And honestly, that makes the experience more enjoyable because you're not failing alone. You've got someone there to witness the ridiculousness. By the end of the day, I realized that helping doesn't always mean fixing things perfectly. Sometimes it just means showing up, trying, embracing the mess you create along the way. Every misstep, spill, and drop plate is part of the story. If you can find the humor in it, you're doing life right. That's what makes these moments worth remembering: the chaos, the comedy, and the small victories hidden in the middle of disasters. Helping my wife turned into a perfect storm of laughter. Humility and relatability. A reminder that adulting isn't about being perfect. It's about surviving with a sense of humor intact. So yeah, I try to help my wife, and it went about as well as you'd expect. I spilled water, dropped plates, broke a few utensils, and somehow managed to turn laundry into a small disaster zone. The dog watched, the counters were soaked, and my confidence was nowhere to be found. But here's the thing, by the end of the day, I survived, my wife survived, and somehow we were all still laughing about it. That's really what helping and adulting is all about: good intentions, little chaos, and finding the humor in your own mistakes. Honestly, if you can laugh at yourself while everything's falling apart, you're probably doing life better than you think.